It was a great restaurant, one I had always liked. The atmosphere, the food, and especially the acoustics were just right. So many restaurants these days opt for that unfinished look, which ruins the acoustics, reflecting noise to the point where a quiet conversation becomes impossible. This place, however, was different. It was an old house, converted into an upscale steakhouse. They had preserved some of the original rooms, creating 7 separate dining areas on 2 levels. Each room had around 6 tables, spaced well apart, offering a pleasing sense of intimacy. It was the perfect setting for a romantic dinner. But tonight, I didn't enjoy my romantic dinner. I was dining with my wife, Sarah. We were seated at a table in one of the rooms on the lower level. She seemed restless, rarely looking at me, nervous and afraid, but also determined. I hadn't said much since we arrived, aside from the necessary pleasantries to get us seated and order drinks. I was studying the menu, torn between the blackberry fillet and the beef tenderloin with bordelaise sauce. I took a sip of my single malt on ice and glanced at Sarah. She was still a physically beautiful woman, smart and successful, and until recently I would have died for her. But now I felt nothing. She didn't know about the change in my feelings, and I wasn't going to ruin her plans for the evening by telling her. "John, it's me," she began, her voice filled with tension. "I'm John Archer, 49 years old, and a fairly successful software executive. I've been married to Sarah for 28 years. I wanted to talk to her about something that had been weighing on my mind, but I had hoped it could be done peacefully." She looked at me with a mixture of irritation and indignation. I hoped that my calm demeanor would ease her nerves, making it easier for her to speak. Finally, she blurted out what I knew she had been struggling to say. "Thank you for your sarcasm, John. I've always been attracted to you." "Thank you, Sarah, but in this case, I wasn't being sarcastic," I replied, not elaborating further. I held her gaze as I took another sip of whiskey until she glanced away, noticing the waiter approaching. When the waiter arrived, I handed him my menu and ordered the fillet with blackberries and Spanish rice without waiting for Sarah to order first, as I usually would. She seemed surprised by my apparent disregard for etiquette and quickly ordered a salad. Who orders a salad at an award-winning steakhouse? Once the waiter left, Sarah fixed her gaze on me again. "I've been thinking a lot lately about us, and I wanted to share my thoughts with you. There's a big difference between late and too late." "A day late and $1 short," I responded, hoping to lighten the mood. "There's no easy way to say this," I added, swirling my glass, brushing off the condensation with my thumb. "Just say what's on your mind," she prompted. "I want to try a period of separation." "Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt," she quickly interjected, "but what does that mean?" "Parting ways might help us rediscover our feelings for each other," I suggested. "John, I don't want you to fall in love with me again," she said flatly. I smiled, a gentle, almost playful smile, as if teasing a child arguing for 10 more minutes before bedtime. "I have no patience for your justifications, Sarah. You want this separation so you can explore things with someone else? So what came first, your crush on me or your search for my replacement?" I asked, the frustration seeping through. "John, I didn't replace you, and I'm not looking for a replacement." We both know our marriage has become stale. I think some time apart will help us figure out how to fix it and get back to where we were. Yes, Sarah, our marriage has stagnated, I agreed, and for the last 2 years, I've been trying to change that. But until recently, only one person was working on our marriage. Now, there are 3, and those 3 are working in different directions. I raised my hand to stop her from interrupting. You replaced me, Sarah. You cheated on me, and now you want me to agree to this separation so you can explore this relationship further. John, it's not about that, she protested, twisting a napkin in her hands. You're wrong. I didn't cheat on you with Dan, and he's not your replacement. Are you saying you haven't had sex with Dan yet? But you did replace me with him, emotionally if not physically. Keep your voice down, John, she hissed. There's no need to broadcast our problems. You already did, I countered. Who else have you discussed this separation with besides me? Well, I may have mentioned it to Dan a couple of times. Our dishes arrived just then, and I felt the sting of her betrayal anew. Discussing our marital problems with Dan before discussing them with me isn't just deceitful, it's a betrayal. Coming to decisions about our marriage with Dan, then informing me of those decisions, that's cheating, Sarah. She was silent, seething with rage as the dishes were placed in front of us. I winked at the young waitress, who looked a little uncomfortable herself. You're talking nonsense, John, Sarah said, clearly irritated. Dan is just a friend, someone who listens, who's been kind, considerate, and supportive. He's someone I can rely on, who understands and appreciates me without judgment. I shook my head. Sarah, you're deluding yourself. You've insulted our marriage, our past, and you've ruined our future. Dan might seem smart to you, but you've let him peel away at our marriage like an onion, layer by layer. Thank you, I said to the waiter as he checked on our meals. My dish looks perfect. I don't appreciate your attitude, John, Sarah said, clearly uncomfortable. You're wrong about Dan. In fact, I think you'd like him. He's very much like you in many ways. Sarah, the idea that Dan and I are interchangeable is laughable. You'll never understand how mistaken you are. Dan and I are nothing alike. I don't meddle in other people's marriages. I don't entertain other men's wives, and I certainly won't play along with your games. You've been playing games, Sarah. You've been sharing our personal life with Dan, seeking his advice, discussing our future with him instead of me. You betrayed me, and you make me sick. I looked at her shocked expression and took a bite of the fillet, savoring it. After a moment, I set down my fork and took a sip of water. John, I can see this has upset you, she said softly. I didn't mean to hurt you. Is that true, Sarah? Or are you just trying to ease your conscience? You knew full well that cheating on me would hurt, which is why you kept it a secret. You didn't mean to hurt me. Well, you certainly didn't try to protect me either. I pushed my plate away, pulled out my wallet, and threw $200 on the table. I won't agree to a separation, Sarah. I've filed for divorce. Sarah resisted, placing conditions on the divorce. She wouldn't sign the papers, wouldn't bargain in good faith. She wanted to meet to discuss our marriage, but I refused. I told her I'd talk to her after the divorce was final, not a second sooner. I wanted to avoid a contentious divorce, for the sake of our children and grandchildren, but I wanted out. Eventually, I got my divorce. We split everything evenly, and I left Sarah. She sent me a nasty note, asking why I had given up on our marriage and didn't fight for her. "How do you like this level of madness?" she wrote. In response, I sent her a photo she had sent me 3 days after our dinner, one of her pleasuring Dan, as some twisted form of revenge. I never heard back from her on the matter. I don't go on dates often, and I'm no Casanova. I'm content with my own company or that of my children, grandchildren, and close friends. At first, my children were on Sarah's side. They didn't understand what she had done that was so wrong. I felt like I had failed as a father. But after explaining my position, I asked them, would you accept it if your spouse clearly stopped loving you and started a relationship with someone else? Would you agree to a separation so your unfaithful spouse could explore an adulterous relationship without the guilt and inconvenience that a spouse would likely cause? I couldn't accept that Sarah had given up on our marriage without even trying to work things out with me. Instead, she found someone else to confide in and discuss the future of our marriage with. That was unacceptable. Eventually, my children came around, and our relationship improved, though their relationship with their mother took a hit. Sarah and I are both less happy, and yet happier at the same time. We're less happy because we're alone, but happier because we've found our own way forward. Sarah remarried and divorced again within 2 years of our divorce. She and Dan never married, and they never slept together, aside from that one time. I never remarried. I retired early and moved to the countryside, where I remain to this day. I'm glad I no longer have to waste energy on a woman who doesn't deserve or want it. But I miss the woman I married and the life I thought we could have shared. I'm sad to have lost that, but happy to have left a marriage that had drained me of respect and love. We had many good years, but they faded. And though I was the one who ended the marriage, Sarah was the one who truly ended it long before I did. Marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. Life is hard.